and since there's only one use for leaves and rations too, they're doomed to crash in price. The price of the Bellator ring will probably fall considerably. Dwarf weeds will go up in price as a long-term investment. Welcome to another episode where we go through what's happening in the marketplace. And there's some massive changes at the moment, but also we look at the updates that Jagex have announced that they're working on and the likely effect that'll have on all items that are linked to that update. One of the new items that's doing really well from Forestry Part 2 is the Egg Cushion. Now if you haven't heard or seen anything about this yet, you can now get 64,000 mining XP per hour AFK by buying these things and combining them with limestones to create the padded spoon. They're currently 31,000 GP each, and every one that you create gives you 10 spoons. And the prices are crazy as you could imagine, with everyone trying to jump on this method before they probably nerf it. So I tested it, and one inventory gives you 975 XP at a cost of 800,000 GP. So 1 million XP will cost you 820 million GP in this method. It is pay to win as hell, but you are really paying. And also a quick shout out to the absolute legend who managed to sell some of these on day one for 240,000 GP each. That did make me smile. This is also raising the price of the limestone, which is the secondary ingredient you need. Limestones are now over 1,000 GP each one for a very common item. Now Jagex have already said that they're going to address our feedback with Forestry soon, and since they nerfed the AFK mining training method at the Duke, which was only 11,000 XP per hour, I can't see anything other than a big nerf to this one too. As soon as they do that, obviously the price of these items will plummet. One of the biggest surprises in Forestry was the two-handed axe handles entered the market at just 1 million GP each on day one. Previously, 10,000 anima was selling for around 5 million GP if you put that into items, and that's how many you needed to create the handle. I can only presume possibly botters had that much anima saved up that they just flooded the marketplace and undervalued them on release. So I ended up buying a load at that price and selling them later for 3 million GP each, which was a nice flip and made me about 200 million GP. And those handles seem to have currently stabilised around the 2 million GP mark. The biggest update in Forestry though is probably how they've made firemaking AFK, where you can stand in one place and just add logs to a fire for XP. We've just seen how much people will pay for AFK mining XP, even though you only get a third of the firemaking XP you usually would. I just see so many players doing it this way in future. A lot of people must agree because straight after release, redwood logs went up around 50% before dropping slightly and leveling off. Between this update plus the logs needed to buy items in Forestry and the 10% less logs collected when using a two-handed axe now, I think this is going to be like the dwarf weeds, where the price rises now are just people speculating that they'll go up in price and investors buying them, but it'll be 6 to 12 months before the real price rises happen, and they should go up by quite a lot. Obviously that's a very long time to invest in something, but as we've seen with the dwarf weeds, that can literally treble your investment. Even now, maple logs, which I said a while back to buy at 8 GP each, are now 17 GP, over double. Last week was quite a busy week and Jagex put out some information on a few potential updates, and the next big one I wanted to look into was the Perilous Moons one. And part of this aims to try and make defensive armour have more of a use in the game. How they're proposing to do this is a new mid-level raid. If the boss successfully hits you, it reduces your attack or DPS by say 10%. That way, in theory, it's going to be the meta to bring defensive gear over offensive gear, but I'm not completely convinced. First off, it's aimed at mid-levels, but if there's money to be made, we all know high-level players are going to farm the hell out of it as well, and that is a large percentage of the player base. If a mid-level player can do it with defensive gear, chances are a high-level player with offensive gear, 99 defense, piety, augury, rigor, whichever, will still have more defense than they will. Then there's the new items that you get. How in demand will they be? They showed them off in the last video and this is how they'll work.
The dual macro whittles. So the way these work, you get a hit, a successful hit, and you have a 33% chance to attack faster. Very cool. We have added a little effect so that you can see when this happens. There you go. So my next attack is going to happen in 3 ticks. I'm popping off. But you see there, I didn't get the effect, and so I had to wait a little longer.
These weapons are good against low defense enemies. So if you're trying to use these against high defense enemies, it ain't going to be popping off.
yeah, you'll not hit very often. Range set, it's fairly standard ranged, except you have a chance to burn targets that you hit. I believe I don't have... Yeah, so I've applied burn there. I don't know if I just got extremely lucky there or... Okay, well, so this is proccing on every hit, which is great for the demo, but will not be actually how it works. You have a 20% chance to proc this. So you can see this enemy is taking damage over time. Yeah, that's going to, on average, 20% chance to hit. You do 10 damage over time. That's going to make your max hit effectively 2 higher. Yeah, so with this set, the way that it works is every time you cast a spell that has a binding effect, so something that would be like Ice Barrage or Entangle or these grass spells, which have cool as hell animations, you have a 10% chance for your next melee attack to ignore your action delay. So you can instantly attack with melee, and that's why the button is here. We don't want you accidentally getting dragged into melee against Whisperer when you're using this set. So let's give that a go. Grasp goes through. Oh, am I not going to proc the 10% chance now? Hang on. God damn it. I thought I set this up to... Oh, it happened there. You saw the 2 hit, but...
They talk a lot in the video about using these in PVM, and I'm not sure what you guys think, but I only see the benefit of these in PvP really. They don't seem to do a lot of damage, they just have that element of surprise or stack damage that is so useful to try and stack a player out. Of course, as soon as they announced this, the price of Justica jumped straight up in price and has dropped off a little bit since, but this is the one they mentioned and seems to be the item that most people are taking a gamble on for this update. Din's Bulwark also jumped up in price a little bit too, but by a much smaller percentage. I've got to be honest with this one, I'm not confident at all about this one resulting in massive price rises. The J-mods say it isn't good against things with high defense, which rules out most bosses, and for the set effect to work you need to wear all 4 pieces, and the defensive bonuses of the armour is worse than Barrow's. It's early days on this update and they're still tweaking it, so a lot can happen, but currently it looks like these sets will just be useful for like mid-level PvPing, and that's hardly going to create much demand. Investors buying up defensive armour before an update though will of course probably raise the price even more, and you can definitely use that to your advantage for a quick flip and cash in just before the update actually happens. Another huge thing that's happened is the last video I spoke about the price of gold, which has been crashing this year. At the start of the year it was $0.3 per million on the black market, and a few weeks ago I did a video showing that it dropped to just 0.19. Well, since then it's dropped even further, with sellers now asking for just 0.17 and buyers trying to get it at 0.16. That suggests this year we are mass producing gold, to a point where it's on course to devalue every item you own by 50% in just 12 months. This is what's driving the price of items like the Dragon Full Helm, which has gone up 40%. When gold is falling in value, the best thing you can do is to invest it in items, because as a general rule, if there's more gold to go around, then the price of items goes up too. And all the big investors and people with a lot of money in the game know this, so this is why you're seeing things like the price of Third Age just go through the roof, and in some case go up 400% in price. So if you have GP lying around, what should you invest in? The difficulty with this is that most items fall in price the longer content is out. So right now there's a battle between inflation, which in theory should double the price of everything in the last 12 months, versus the fact that we've just farmed a load more of that same item and the demand for those is reduced, lowering the price. And this is why rare items and rare drops like the T-boat for example are a good investment, because we farm them at a much slower rate as it's one of the rarest possible rewards, plus it has huge demand so it's always very popular. Zarag crossbow for Nex has also gone up by a similar amount this year, although duo Nex being the best moneymaker in the game right now does worry me a little bit, and that may be why the rate this item is going up in price has slowed recently. Another item that's benefited from this but also had an update earlier in the year is the Imbued Heart, which can now be made into the Saturated Heart. It's snuck under the radar a little bit as the price rise has been very gradual. I've also noticed something very strange this month, which is a complete mystery to me. Now hopefully one of you can help me with. Months ago I had millions of death runes, hoping that the new Desert Treasure 2 bosses would have some mechanics weak to ancients, which meant casting a load of ancient spells which generally use a lot of death runes. Of course it's Jagex, so we used one spell, a Leviathan instead, and I ended up selling them for the exact same price that I bought them. This last week though, death runes have gone up by 70%, and I just can't see why. If anything, the Colosseum, which is introducing some fire runes, a new high level rune into the game, should have had the opposite effect you would have thought. I could just be missing something really obvious, so if you do know, please let me know why the hell death runes are skyrocketing in price.